Remember when you were a kid and you would get an allowance? That word is used by Paul in Colossians. He says this in 3:13, "Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others." That's Colossians 3:13. I love how Paul is like, you need to, in advance, assume that you will be offended, and in advance decide that you will give them a certain amount of forgiveness for their offense. Now, that doesn't mean that you become a mat that everybody just walks on. That's one of our fears, though, in our being offended. We're afraid if we're not offended, that people will just walk all over us and they'll keep doing it. So there's something to the give and take transaction of if they wrong me, I'm going to make sure they know that they wronged me because I don't like the feeling of being wronged again. But what Jesus does is he rewires our souls so that we are remarkably less offendable. It's not that we can't be offended, and don't hear me saying that it doesn't matter how people treat you. It does, and there is something to be said about expecting fair treatment and even having boundaries. But Paul what he's trying to do is he's trying to say, listen, if you go into life, if you go into your day, like you and I, if we go into Monday assuming that someone will say or do something that somehow offends us, if we decide in advance that we're going to make allowance for that, which means we anticipate it, we budget for it emotionally, it's going to save us a lot of trouble. It's remarkable what happens if you go into life expecting that human beings will be human beings. So he says, make allowance for each other's faults. And the idea is, if you do this for the community around you, the community around you will hopefully do that for you. Because don't you love it when people let you off the hook for the dumb things that you do? I know I do. I'm a married man. Of course I do. And so when he says this, and then he puts it all in context, it's not just to be a good person. He says, remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. And the real question is, how much budget does Jesus have for my sin and my offenses? More than my offenses could ever create. That's the way to live, and that freedom only comes in Christ. When we realize how much he loves us, how much allowance and grace he has for us, that we can have the same for others. Jesus is no mat. People don't just walk all over him, but it is amazing how this king, this creator, this universal Lord and leader over all, somehow has allowance for me to offend him on Monday. Do you have allowance for others? And hopefully, do they have allowance for you? That's RadCast.